I read this quote by Robert Michaels, actually. It was wrongly attributed to Oscar Wilde for a long time. He said, everything is about sex, except sex. He said, everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. Everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. Think on that.
Warning, viewer discretion is advised. The content, views, and educational material you are about to experience could challenge your belief, trigger strong emotions, and frankly, piss you off. This isn't for everyone. If you're not ready to confront new ideas, or if your feelings bruise easily, this might be the time to click away. Expect to be challenged, to think, and you might even want to scream at the screen. Proceed with caution, and remember, you chose to be here. Let's get it.
Assalamu alaikum, peace. I'm Coach Nazir. I am one of the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships, as well as one of the authors of the book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. Of course, letstalkpolygamy.com is where you can get that at. Now, today, we're going to have a difficult conversation for some. But I want to start with a principle. The principle is that offense is taken, not given. See, what you're pretty much going to hear in this video are facts and observations about the world that we live in. So whether or not you like what you hear or you feel good about it, is kind of up to you. All right, matter of fact, it's not kind of up to you, it's entirely up to you. But I'm going to get to it. And that's why I wanted to call this video in this series actually Beyond Monogamy. Now, of course, I am married to two incredible women, Coach Fatimah and Coach Nyla. I've been practicing polygyny now for over 15 years. For those of you who don't know, polygamy simply means a spouse with multiple spouses. And polygyny means a husband who's married to multiple wives. On the flip side, there's also polyandry, which is a wife married to multiple husbands. We ain't on that. We haven't really seen that successful throughout history as human beings anyway. So back to what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to use those terms interchangeably, whether you like it or not. So let's get to it, though. Today, we really want to kind of go to the basics and really find out what's going on just in human relationships in general, specifically what's called and been called the sexual marketplace, since we're talking about men and women. Now, keep this reminder and just know that you are the result of two people, two humans, male and female, getting very excited and getting together, and boom, several months later, 9 or 10 months later, you were born. All right. So yeah, you are the result of that exchange in the sexual marketplace. Me, I was born to my parents when they were both 16 years old. So yep, I'm a result of that. Now, don't mind the lighting. I mean, the sun is going down right now, so hopefully I'll get done with this video before it's fully dark. But just wanted to come out onto my balcony and talk to you. Just really go into this to set a foundation. So what is your value? Now, before you react, let's be clear on the difference between worth and value. See, your worth is internal, right? That limit there, that's your own self-esteem, right? That's your dignity. That's how you feel about yourself. And some people say, well, that's infinite. I say it's immeasurable. Okay, I'm not asking you about your worth. I want to ask you your value. Now, see, value, on the other hand, is external. It's what others in the marketplace are willing to transact for. Now, the transaction, you may ask, what do you mean by the transaction? Sexual marketplace value is simply the transaction in that type of relationship. For example, women control access to sex, men control access to commitment. Generally, that commitment means marriage. And that's what we talk about on this channel, of course, because we're pro-morals, no matter what form of marriage you seek. But let's get down to the crux of why beyond monogamy is becoming commonplace now, or at least it's talked about a lot more, and specifically where polygyny fits in and how women are actually driving this. Yep, you heard it. Women are actually driving the need and the desire for polygyny. So let's get to it. Keep in mind, today we're not discussing your worth. We're talking about your value. We're going to break that down with my F.R.A.M.E method. And if you haven't heard about it, no worries. Take some notes if you can. So let's get it. The F.R.A.M.E is pretty much an acronym put together. F.R.A.M.E. F.R.A.M.E. The F, we're going to start with the men. The F stands for fearless. It means facing the hard truths. And the most avoided truth that a man and a woman's journey are really polar opposites when it comes to the sexual marketplace. To see this clearly, this is what I call the mountain of sex. Yep, big mountain. I know that triangle, pyramid, whatever. Big mountain of sex. Now, this is what I mean. This is important to understand. Where men and women start. Because this can help men understand why sometimes they call or consider women delusional in certain areas. And they can also understand why women kind of pass over them at certain stages of their lives. So for example, at 18 years old, this is traditionally the legal age across the world or whatnot, but at 18 years old, women sit at the peak of this mountain, right? And a man starts at the bottom. He has no proven value whatsoever, no skills, no resources, no status. He's really practically invisible to the market. So the man starts at the bottom and has to climb up that mountain. And I just mentioned the woman, the 18-year-old woman, she starts at the top of the mountain. She starts at the absolute peak. So she possesses at that tender age, that young legal age of 18, the prime assets that the marketplace, the sexual marketplace desires, which is youth, beauty, and pretty much peak fertility. Now she has her maximum sexual marketplace value. Now she has options, and many times she's considered the prize. So when they say trophy wife or something like that, you're talking about young woman, beautiful figure, fertile, and so on and so forth, right? That's the starting line for them. Keep this in mind because this is very, very important, especially when words like delusional and you think you have this optionality, all this type of stuff goes on. We're going to jump into that. Now, the R in F.R.A.M.E stands for reliable. Reliable, just predictable patterns of value. So what do I mean by that? What do you mean, Coach Nazir? Well, here's the deal. Since that's the second pillar, the rules of the marketplace are brutally reliable and backed by data. So let's talk about biological attractiveness. Men are overwhelmingly visual. You probably heard me say that men are seduced by the eyes, but women are more seduced by their ears. If you haven't, now you have. So you know now that men are very visual. So a woman's waist to hip ratio has biologically been a signal of youth and fertility for as long as we've been on the planet. Those curves. That's what a man likes, biologically speaking. It is what it is. Not fake, not mutated, not added, none of that kind of stuff. But the waist to hip ratio has been there. It's already in us, biologically speaking. Okay? So the average Miss Universe, for example, her age for average Miss Universe is 21. All right? The average woman on the Maxim Hot 100 list, for example, 24. According to dating apps, it says that the most attractive women on dating apps age is 23 years old. All right? So this is a woman at an absolute market peak. Now, on the flip side, let's look at men. Women are less visual, but they can adjust their attraction based on a number of different things, especially resources and how secure a man is with his status. All right, that means he can really provide security, generally speaking. Now, the biological attractiveness sign for a woman is not waist to hip ratio. No, it's shoulder to hip ratio. They want somebody who's strong, big shoulders, kind of that V back, if you will. That's what they're looking for. Now, let's look at the numbers, though. What the data says when it comes to age. The average age of Mr. Olympia is 33 years old. People magazine does a Sexiest Man Alive story every single year. Their average age for the sexiest man alive, according to People magazine, who takes a poll, I guess, from its readers, is 39 years old. Now, on dating apps, the man's age that they find the most attractive is 50 years old. Yeah. If you're surprised by that, I was too. I have a lot of clients that come to me, generally average age, I say early 40s, mid 30s, early 40s, when it comes to really getting coaching and taking their life to the next level, right? So, but many of them have no idea of this. They think they're losing or they're past their prime or something like that. Have no idea, bro. What's hitting 50? 50. All right, I'm not there yet. You know what I'm saying? Prayerfully, I'll make it. But 50 years old. Max attractiveness, according to different dating apps and their data. That usually means he's already achieved some wealth, some status, have some security, resources, right? Now, this is very important for men. As you climb this mountain, 19 years old, 20, 21, 22, well, you need a decade or a dozen years to really get to 30. But this is what happens. See, I mentioned women start at the peak, 18, but then they slowly begin to descend. They get older in age, beauty and youth goes, but they continue to come down while men continue to increase if they're working on themselves, building themselves up, and becoming worth more, again, more valuable, increasing in value, right? Here's the thing. At 30 years old, women are coming down this mountain, men are coming up this mountain. At 30 years old is pretty much where they meet in the middle. Where now men pass women up at 30. I don't think it's a coincidence why the average age of a woman getting married in the West, in the United States, is 28 and a half years old, basically 29 years old, right before hitting that big 3-0. They understand, they talk about biological clocks and everything else. They absolutely understand. That doesn't mean a woman can't be gorgeous, can have all the stuff in her 30s. She absolutely can. However, she's no longer holding that top spot. Now, remember, men, when I told you about the kind of delusion, since that's all she's known and been at that top spot, if you will, and being higher than you and having optionality when it comes to men, the difference is many of them have no idea. It's not optionality for relationships or commitment or marriage. It's optionality to get poked. Totally different thing. And many women have no idea, being seduced by their ears. Hence, a lot of poor choices during this age range, and not until they get more mature and usually make really bad mistakes and errors do many of them recognize this actual thing exists. Hence, we're making this video for you. Nevertheless, 30 years old. Men is on average 30 and a half years old. When he gets married, a woman, 28 and a half. Okay, at least in the States. All right, good, very important. That means now men get to open up more optionality. So you're telling me in your 30s, women in their 20s are attracted to you, 30s attracted, 40s attracted to you. Remember I talked about how women are driving this push now towards polygyny? And many don't mind sharing for those men who build themselves up, who change and make a shift and grow and understand this frame. This is why this is important. For these dozen years, this decade, or this dozen years, if you will, to getting from 18 to 30 for men, this is where your ambition comes in. What dreams, goals, hopes, aspirations are you working toward? Not wishing toward, not that you want to hope one day something happens or it changes, or what are you actually working toward? What are you building? So I give you an example, right? I was in my early 20s, thankfully, when some people saw more of me than I saw myself, but I had to actually get involved in a number of different businesses, and one was the network marketing industry in general, right? Didn't make any money with this first company or whatnot, but I was open to seeing a whole different way of actually getting money. All right, blew my mind. I had some relatives that were doing well financially or whatnot, but they weren't sharing or telling or anything like that. And I thought that you had to go to school, get your grades, get a good job. But I knew, one, that wasn't for me because I was broke. Number two, I didn't like school. You're already on our channel, and you see how we are empowering people when it comes to polygamy education. You may be wondering, what's the next step? Especially knowing that we are the authors of the book,
Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. If you want to get off the emotional roller coaster, whether it's jealousy, insecurity, frustration, anger, maybe even guilt in some cases, you're going to want to pick up this book.
Definitely wish I would have had this book back a while ago when we first embarked on polygyny. And you will learn a lot of things about minding your marriage and what that actually means, so you're not comparing your marriage to your co-wives or anybody else's for that matter.
If you've heard, I'm not against polygamy, I just against when it's not done right, you want to learn how to do it right, this will teach you how to be more than twice the man you need to be to get it done. Let's talk polygamy.com. We look forward to shipping yours off to you. So that wasn't going to happen. However, coming across and meeting different entrepreneurs, they were making like $10,000 a month, $50,000 a month at the time. I was like, man, I didn't know anybody making $10,000, $15,000 a month. You know, I knew people on the wrong side of the track, but I didn't even know if that's what they were making at the time. And they were in the game and not even making that. That's crazy. But anyway, I digress. Let me come back. But what is your ambition? What are you striving for? Maybe people talk about, oh, they want to travel the world. They want to do this or do that and go to these different countries and so on, right? Well, what's stopping you? Usually what's stopping you is up here. But an ambitious man, a man who actually has plans, must have a purpose bigger than the woman, bigger than his wife, even bigger than his family. That's extremely important because you need to be working towards something bigger. That's attractive. All right. Knowing that you have a goal, you have a mission, you're not going to let something just stop you or really get in the way. That is attractive to many women who have sense and who are mature. We'll talk about that in a minute anyway. But your ambitions over this 10 years, you can start in your 20s, you can fail, try this, try that. And right now we have AI that's doing a whole lot. It allows a lot of leverage. However, at the same time, for those people who aren't being ambitious, they're going to be looking at UBI very shortly, our universal basic income. So time is absolutely of the essence. But that's another discussion for another day. But the A for you men is ambition. But let's jump to the next one though. M. M is extremely important. M stands for masculine. Unfortunately, we live in a gynocentric world where the feminization of men has been dominated by this feminist wave of third and fourth wave feminism that has come across and just, pretty much emasculate. They love to emasculate men. You say something or you speak too loud and now it's how you say it, all kinds of mess that goes along with it. But I'm talking about you being in your masculine as a protector, as a provider, as someone who nurtures, as someone who's actually able to be still in a world of chaos. It's important. Being that rock, making sure you are calm, you have that steady strength, and you're demonstrating that power. See, I read this quote by Robert Michaels, actually. It was wrongly attributed to Oscar Wilde for a long time. He said, everything is about sex, except sex. He said, everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. Everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. Think on that. I'm not going to dive too much into it because a word to the wise is enough. As a man continues to climb, again, from his 30s, when he passes a woman up, to his 50s, and even more begins to level out toward his 60s. A woman, hers tends to decline fast, especially when she gets in her 30s. Interestingly enough, I didn't know that women became geriatric, or at least their wombs became geriatric in their 30s. There's a whole different type of care that happens in a geriatric pregnancy. I just think of geriatric as geriatric shoes and, senior citizens and all that. It's in their 30s. Women know this. So some use makeup to kind of hide it. Others, they work out. Some tend to finally come to the realization that they're no longer on top of the mountain anymore and so on. And people aren't checking for them. See, Maori. Yeah. Now men by volume, just looking at humans, men by volume, the billions amount of sperm cells, look, every heartbeat, 1,500 sperm cells get created. By volume, you want to continue your legacy just as a human being. Now, forget your legacy. You want to continue the existence of human beings. Remember I told you, two people got together and boom, you're here. Yeah. So approximately 7 billion people on the planet. That's maybe 14 billion people. We're doing something. And we're here. Why does that make any type of difference? Because I'm talking about the way we're hardwired. So women produce one viable egg per month that can be fertilized, which pretty much takes her out of the sexual marketplace game for most of the year, where she can have usually one child. A man can have literally hundreds or thousands, depending on how strong he is, with impregnating women. Like if I have 10 biological children right now with my 2 wives. Okay. If I want to have 10 more children, all right, without morals, without any type of rules or anything like that, they can be here next year. 10 more. All right. That's the way we're wired. So it's important though for you as a man to stand in your masculine, to be steady, strong, and actually be able to have this conversation. There's really no reason to try to even explain as a man why you desire polygyny. It's like trying to understand from a woman, her telling you about her premenstrual cycle or what it feels like to give birth. We're not going to understand it. And then with all that pain that we see them go through with giving birth, they want to have more than one child. Seems like a mental illness. At least to me, when I look at it, like, you crazy. Like, what? All the stuff you went through, you won't have another baby. Hey, thankfully, we're not women. I'll take the man stuff all day. Now, for a man who has climbed the mountain, who has built his value, become a man of value, who has increased his resources and focus on himself and has some discipline with his thing, you know what I'm talking about. it may seem that monogamy is unnatural. There's an unnatural restriction, and you wouldn't be wrong. But that leads to my last, or the last pillar in the frame, which is E, exceptional. Becoming exceptional. See, have you ever been somewhere and you want to go grab something to eat, and there's a restaurant, there's like a long line at a restaurant, but then there's another restaurant right across the street or right down the way, and there's like nobody there, and you wonder what's going on over here. You know what I'm saying? It must be something special. Must be good, or people wouldn't line up. That's the assumption, right? See, that same man who has actually built some things and has more resources and provided security and demonstrated that he's separated himself from the mediocre masses of men, absolutely get more eyes on him, get more desire towards him. It's common sense. You know, I haven't seen anywhere where there was a concert and there's like a bunch of male groupies chasing some female singers. Not that like women, but groupies tend to be of a certain sex and throw it all away. I mean, there's songs written about it. Songs written about women that just do that. And there are many different videos, viral or not, where women have thrown away their whole entire marriages on some stupid concert or some stupid celebrity. But it is what it is. Now, E, again, exceptional. The man who successfully climbed the mountain is an exceptional. He's considered a prize, if you will, that women of all ages are competing for. Let me give you an example. If you're looking for a man that wants to be, if you're Black, African American, or Black American, and you want a Black American man that graduated from college, well, guess what? There's about a 1-to-7 ratio, one man for every 7 women that are going to graduate college. So it's a 1 in 7. Now, the numbers can be skewed any which way you want to put it. Just across the board, there's over 7 million women in America than men. And we don't just simply match up because it's male and female. It's XX chromosome, XY chromosome. That's not how it works. So men who earn over a certain amount, for example, there are less of them. They're higher up on the mountain, if you will. And many of these women, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever ages, still desire these top tier men, which again pushes polygyny, where he can increase his volume or that legacy with more children, a family, and security, whatever, by practicing polygyny. Now, you might be saying, all right, what do I do? The man who climbed the mountain, he's not just looking for a pretty face. That comes, like my father said, a dime a dozen. I didn't understand it until I got older, but yeah, a dime a dozen. It's cheap. All right, but the man who's disciplined is really looking for a spouse or spouses that possess these several properties. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. It's getting a little darker, and I think you get the point. These women also have F.R.A.M.E. This is the feminine side of F.R.A.M.E. The F stands for feminine grace. She brings that feminine energy, that softness that can calm a storm from a man that's fighting the world and the many things that come with that. The R is for respectful attitude, respectful. See, men generally spell love, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. You can keep your love if you don't have respect. 100. A is affection and admiration. Affection and admiration, all of this matters, not just necessarily intimate affection. Of course, that's important, having access, but affection and admiration. Man will give you the world by you being appreciative of what he does. Now, the M, this is the one. This is the biggest one. The M stands for maturity, generally emotional maturity, being able to self-soothe, not fall for all the lies and the delusion that you're going to always have just unlimited optionality, end up like people like Vivica, you know, on the circuit, talking about you taking applications at her big age. Not gonna happen. Maturity is extremely important. All right. Now, the E stands for exclusive. Exclusive. There's loyalty to your family, to your legacy, to your husband. Exclusive. You're not for the streets. Everybody don't see your assets. That is for the house, at least with a man of value. Not a man that's on some other stuff and, you know, lacking in certain areas and wants you to see all this stuff and feels good about other people's compliments or their desire and all that kind of. Nope. E is for exclusive. Now, if you increase there, that can actually transcend a lot, even when it comes to age, because many women, sadly, are lacking in these different areas, just like many men are lacking in the areas that I mentioned prior to. So F.R.A.M.E. for men and F.R.A.M.E. for women. But that mountain of sex and the sexual marketplace value is absolutely real. Now, I know some people might be hearing this for the first time, especially the ladies. You might think, oh, this truth is painful. It's personal. It's permanent. How could you say this, Coach Nazir? Listen, I'm just speaking reality. All right, I point out a number of different sources and all that kind of stuff, but that's not what you came here for. I'm not just speaking to you as a peer, as someone necessarily in my age group. All right, I have children that are married. I have other children that I'm working to help get married. So yeah, my children are seeing these videos. My sons are hearing what I'm speaking of. My daughters also hear what I'm speaking about. So with that being said, what made the most sense to you? I would encourage you, if you're having a hard time swallowing what I'm talking about, is that you force your emotions to follow your mind, not your mind following your emotions. Sit back, take a breather, think about it, research the data, look at your normal, natural life, what's going on, and if you are a man, step up. Be honest. All right? Because women are desiring those who are above average. Who said averages are anyway? Average is the top of the bottom. It's the bottom of the top. Nobody like, oh, I'm gonna strive to be average. They don't win championships. They're not competitive, not winners. But if you do want to win, then it's going to take more effort from you, especially right now in these days and times. So I'm gonna say, look, for men, fearless, reliable, ambitious, masculine, and exceptional. Women, feminine, respectful, affection and admiration, mature and exclusive. That's F.R.A.M.E. Implement these different things in your lives. If you want more information on how to do that, make sure you already like the video and you subscribe. It takes all of a second to go ahead and do that. But we do have different programs. We also have a community that you can go ahead and check out. I would strongly suggest you, as a man, to get the F.R.A.M.E. playbook, how polygamous men build respect, desire, and leadership at home. Link is in the description. Comment below. F.R.A.M.E. is for real if you made it this far in the video to let us know that you rock with us. Again, I'm Coach Nazir. I'm the coach that helps men get their shift together. I will see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. We're going to have a difficult conversation. For some. Like all them tweeners, right? Like I'm voting or something.
But what the?